source for everything paranormal. Parax.
Throughout the ages, history has been altered by word of mouth and the misrepresentation of those who might not have been present when some of the world's most significant events took place. Channelers Barry and Connie Strohm bring through the spirits of those who actually witnessed or took part in these historical events and lets them tell their stories in their own words. Welcome to Channeling History. And now, here are your hosts, Barry and Connie Strohm.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Channeling History. I'm sorry we had a bit of a problem with our passwords tonight, so we're running a little bit on behind, but we are here. So anyway, welcome to the show. We're the only show where we speak to the souls that make things happen, and we're brought to you on the Parax Radio Network. I'm Barry Strohm, your host, and I will be doing the channeling tonight.
I would like to thank you for tuning in to our show tonight as well. I'm Connie Strohm, your co-host, and I will be asking the questions of our spirit guest tonight, the first man to walk on the moon, Neil Armstrong. We think we have a very unique show that brings you very useful information. So please tell your friends about us so we can continue to grow our audience.
Our disclaimer tonight is going to be very important, as you're going to be hearing answers to questions that are very controversial. Needless to say, the government is probably not going to be real happy about some of the answers that we speak tonight. So anyway, the opinions and statements voiced on our show are the channeled words of the spirits and do not necessarily reflect our opinions, those of the Parax Network, or our sponsors.
Tonight's show will be very interesting since Barry has written 2 books based on channeling an alien. Aliens Among Us, Exploring Past and Present, and Spirits Speak of the Universe. These books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and on our website. We believe the answers given tonight will support much of the information included in those books. As always, we welcome your questions through the ParaX chat room. While most of our shows will be dedicated to interviewing historic and famous figures, we are planning some special shows in the future in which we hope to solve mysteries and even some unsolved crimes.
All of our shows are available on our YouTube channel, and that's in my name, Barry Strohm. Or if you'd like to download them, you can go to Podomatic.com and just search for Channeling History. We have started a new podcast. It's named A Weekly Message from Jesus. And in that podcast, we bring a message of faith and inspiration to help guide us through our current troubled times. We post a new message on Wednesdays on our YouTube channel. When we begin channeling tonight, Connie will ask the questions and I will answer the questions in the words of the Spirit. When I channel, I'm simply a messenger for the spirits, and the words do not reflect my opinions or knowledge, especially knowledge. Before we channel, we always say a prayer of protection. So Connie will now say the prayer, and we will begin to channel with Neil Armstrong.
God, please grant us your wisdom and protection. Grant us the knowledge that we can handle and keep us safe from all things that will harm us. Keep the messages positive and pure love. Keep us safe from our own egos. We ask these things in the light of the seen, the unseen, and the honesty of God. Amen.
Okay, Connie, we've been talking with Mr. Armstrong. I know he's here with us, so let's begin.
Hey, Neil, would you like to begin with a message?
I would. I would like to thank you for inviting me back. We channeled together almost 2 years ago now, and I was very honored at that time. And I'm also very honored to have you here, to be back to speak with you again. I know that we're reaching more people in the radio show, and I hope that they enjoy all that they hear. So, anyway, if you would like to begin with your questions, I would be happy to try to answer them for you.
Okay, Neil, how has your perspective changed about the space exploration since you're now on the other side?
I now understand quite a bit more than I did when I was on the living side of the veil. I only really understood what I had studied, what I was told, and what I believed to be true. Now that I'm over here, I can speak to all of the famous space pioneers that have gone before me, and I can be able to even speak to the astronauts that were Russian and were our opposition. I can also see forward and backwards in history a bit. That means that I have an understanding of where we failed, and I have an understanding of what we need to do to prosper in the future. I am hoping that my answers tonight will be able to give you a bunch of good information.
Okay, how long has our government been communicating with aliens?
Our government has been communicating with aliens for hundreds of years. Even long before your Civil War, aliens had made their presence known, and their secrecy was assured. It is not a new concept. Aliens have been visiting Earth since the time of your dinosaurs, and that was over 60 million years ago. So needless to say, they have been here for quite a while, much longer than humans.
Is there any long-term agreement that our country has with the extraterrestrials?
Yes, there have been various agreements through those hundreds of years, because obviously, as human technology has changed, the agreement with the aliens had to be updated. In the beginning, all of the research was basically done by the aliens, and they would attempt to guide and help humans in many different ways.
Okay. Were you aware of this agreement before your mission?
We had heard about it, but we could not get anyone to give us a definitive answer that it really existed.
So what were you told about the aliens at that time?
We were told that there was a very good possibility that there were extraterrestrials, and that we might possibly even see some of them on our mission. We were told that we would find them to be friendly, although at the time I questioned how our officials knew that they would be friendly. And we were told that we would be sworn to secrecy on anything that we saw. So we all thought we had a good chance to see them. We were still surprised at what we saw.
Yeah. Are there any secret bases on Earth where the extraterrestrials and humans work together?
There are places on Earth where there have been continuing communication and cooperation between extraterrestrials and with humans. This has been going on for quite a while. The bases are kept incredibly secret, and we are sworn that any knowledge that we would have of them should be kept to ourselves.
Before entering the space program, you accomplished many things concerning aviation. Could you tell us about your activities in the Korean War?
I was a fighter pilot in the Korean War. It was a very dangerous time for our pilots, and on one of my missions, I was hit with anti-aircraft fire. My plane came down on the land. I was attempting to hold it together long enough to eject into the water, but luckily, our guys found me and got to me before the North Koreans could do that. Had they found me, I'm sure that I would have been one of the long-term residents of the Hanoi Hilton.
Oh. Well, thank God that didn't happen. When you joined the space program, many things were different than they are today. You had to be aware of the great dangers. Why did you want to join the space program?
The astronauts that were accepted into the program were the best of the best. It was highly competitive. Many very qualified individuals wanted to participate in our space program and make history. I thought that my acceptance into the program would be one of the greatest achievements of my lifetime. When I was accepted, I was overjoyed, and at the time, never realized that I would be the one selected to set the first step on the moon.
Yeah. At that time, what were your beliefs in God?
I always believed in God. I was a strong believer in a divine force that would guide and protect us. I always felt that if I was killed in the space program, that my soul would be very secure in heaven. While I certainly did not want to leave my family, they understood that serving in the military can be very, very dangerous. After all, I had been shot down over North Korea and survived.
What caused the Challenger disaster?
The Challenger disaster was a terrible, terrible thing for us. We never fully realized the risk or what could truly take place. We lost many friends when the Challenger was destroyed. It was a simple valve that malfunctioned. In those days, there were very few backup systems because it was truly the start of space exploration. Today, I don't think it would happen because we're more aware of the technologies required, and our vehicles today have many, many safety backup systems.
Yeah. Was the disaster part of the life plans of the crew?
Now that I'm on the other side, I spend time with the members of the crew that were on the Challenger. I also understand how life plans work and how the soul often lays out missions on these life plans that do not seem to make sense, especially to humans. The direct answer to your question is yes. That was all part of the life plans of the souls that passed on the Challenger on that terrible day.
Yeah. Okay, we have a few questions from our listeners. Would Gus Grissom have been the first man on the moon, and was his death really an accident?
Let's just say that Gus's death could have been avoided. He would have probably been chosen over myself had he survived, but that was also a terrible accident that never had to happen.
Okay, and another listener would like to know, Is it true that Nixon called the shuttle from a landline?
In those days, our technology was not anything like it was today. He did initiate the call on a landline, but it was transferred through different agencies and securities.
What did you think when the Soviets launched their first satellite?
We were all very surprised. We knew that the Soviets were working very hard and were trying to beat us in the space race. When they launched their Sputnik, it was a great wake-up call for our program. After that, we took the advancements of the Soviets very, very seriously. And we knew that we had to proceed very rapidly in order to stay ahead of them.
Yeah. Did the Soviet Union ever do anything to sabotage our space program?
They did a lot to spy upon our space program. They needed some of our technologies so that they could succeed on what they were working upon. They had many spies that were attempting to get information. I don't believe that there was a time that they actually attempted to physically sabotage our program.
Okay, you were the first person to walk on the moon. Was any part of the moon landing not real?
It is an indisputable fact that I was the first American to set foot upon the moon. However, there were some things that, for security purposes, were omitted and were screened. We had parts of the lander technology that we felt the Russians had not as yet discovered. So there were things that were changed so that they did not get a good look at some of our most important technologies.
Hey, what part of the moon landing was not real?
Well, as I told you, we were there, and that was very real. We did not take many images that were sent back directly. Some of the images were slightly altered so that parts of the mission were not visible to the public. There were multiple instances where images were altered. I know that many people think that the fact that image alteration took place indicated that the entire mission was faked. I can assure you that was not true.
True. Well, back to our chat room. It says, what was the real cause of the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster on re-entry? Could there have been a way to save the astronauts?
The accident that took place was once again a fairly minor malfunction, but it created the disaster that took place. Today, our systems have many backups. In those days, something as simple as a failed switch could create a disaster.
Okay, many countries are now challenging our presence in space. What country would you say represents the greatest threat to our program?
The greatest threat to the American program at the present time is unquestionably China. China has a long-term plan to overtake the United States in economic growth, military strength, and presence in space. Russia has some good technologies, but they do not have the asset base necessary to allow them to greatly threaten our space program.
Do you see China ever being able to overtake our space program?
It is a distinct possibility.
What would the impact of that be?
Well, the impact would be that other countries would look to China as being the most powerful nation in the world. At the present time, the United States is the most powerful nation with a great military and with a well laid out plan for space exploration. If China was to overtake our program, they could conceivably create presences on perhaps Mars, or put facilities on our moon that could endanger the security of other nations. Keep in mind that there are many, many technologies out there for which you have no idea that exist.
Yeah. What is your opinion of our existing space program?
I do not feel that the United States is devoting enough funding or research to the space program. With China aggressively trying to overtake our program, it can become a very critical part of our national security. There are many ways that an attack could be initiated from platforms in space. They could even be initiated from the creation of a platform on the moon. We need to be very, very careful in the future about this. While many downplay the risk that can happen, our military leaders are very aware of the danger.
Okay, one of our listeners would like to know, what do you think of the private space industry like Virgin?
I think that it is a superb idea. It brings competition. It forces our government agencies to react to what is taking place in the private areas. The public will have access to a type of space travel to which they would be many years waiting for if NASA was the only player. The private sector is investing huge funds, and those funds do not come under the purview of politicians that are trying to use the expenditure of funds for their personal gain. So I think it is a wonderful thing. I could not be happier about that.
If you're happy, I'm happy. Did you orbit the moon before you landed on the surface?
Yes. We orbited the moon before we attempted our landing.
What did you see when you orbited the backside of the moon?
We were very shocked because there was this huge spaceship that was not ours or belonged to anyone on Earth. It was sitting on the edge of a crater, and we were amazed at the huge size of the vehicle. We had been told of the possibility, but I can tell you that the reality of what we saw far exceeded what we were expecting. All right, let's take a short break here. We will soon be back, and we will continue our interview with Neil Armstrong.
Don't go away. Channeling History will return right after these brief messages.
In order for the light to shine so brightly, the darkness must be present. Tune in every Monday at 10 o'clock for Dark Sun Rising on the Para-X Radio Network. From Haunted Road Media comes an exciting new novel by author Marla Brooks, Soul Connection, A Deadly Obsession. Two lost souls, ripped apart by murder in another century, find each other again in the present, only to discover that the murderer has followed them through time. Can their love save them, or will history repeat itself? Find out in this captivating new novel by Marla Brooks, Soul Connection, A Deadly Obsession. Available now on Amazon.com and at BarnesandNoble.com.
You've no doubt heard of Tango and Cash, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Perhaps it takes two to tango. Well, now, on the first and third Thursdays of each month, there's a show called Tango and Friends at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Para-X Radio Network with your host, Bruce Tango. And yes, there will be at least two to tango on each episode, sometimes even more. There's going to be lots of topics and lots of guests you'll all know and lots of surprises. Tango and Friends every first and third Thursday of the month at 8 p.m. right here on the Para-X Radio Network. Have you ever wondered what Jesus and his followers would say if you could receive their messages today? In his new book, Spirits Speak, Channeling Jesus and the Holy Spirits, channeler and author Barry Strohm answers those questions for you. Using his gift of spirit communication, he brings you messages from such Holy Spirits as Moses, John the Baptist, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, Jesus, and even Mother Teresa and the Reverend Billy Graham. They discuss topics that are important for contemporary life in these troubled times. Spirits Speak, Channeling Jesus and the Holy Spirits is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other booksellers. Signed copies are available on the author's website, spiritspredict.com. After reading this book, you will never again say, "What would Jesus say or do?" Welcome back to Channeling History. Now, here are your hosts, Barry and Connie Strohm.
Okay, welcome back for another very interesting session. So, Neil, if you got some more answers for us, I'm sure Connie has some questions.
Actually, one of our listeners has an interesting question. Neil, what would you have to say to the flat earthers?
Now, I would say, not trying to be nasty, but they need to look at the facts. There is no way that our Earth is flat. We thought that that idea ended when Columbus discovered America, but it's still there, out there. I can assure everyone that the Earth is not flat. I have seen it from the far reach, from the moon, and from other locations as our vehicle traveled back and forth. The water is not running off the edge of the oceans, and all is well.
Okay, let's get back to the moon. Is the moon hollow?
There are portions of the moon that is definitely hollow. We were warned about that, and we were told that it was a distinct possibility.
Okay. Is the moon a naturally occurring body, or was it placed there by extraterrestrials? And is there an entrance on the back side of the moon?
We did see a large hole on the backside of the moon. Obviously, we were orbiting the moon, so we could not investigate it. It was not that far away from where we saw the extraterrestrial ship. We assumed that there was probably a facility on the inside of the moon. And now that I'm over here, I can assure you that there is.
Okay, when you returned from orbiting the moon, you said Santa Claus is real. What was the meaning behind the Santa Claus statement?
We were told to use the code word Santa Claus for aliens or extraterrestrials. So when we came out from behind the moon, I used the code word so that NASA would understand that we had actually interacted or seen with extraterrestrials, and we wanted to get that message out because we realized that the return to Earth was going to be very dangerous.
Why has our government not returned to the moon since your landing?
As I just mentioned, there is a lot going on the backside of the moon. The other civilizations that are working back there do not want any publicity drawn to their activities. So, as part of the international agreement, or the intergalactic agreement, they informed our government that they would appreciate it if we did not return to the moon until disclosure to the public became more of a reality.
Okay. Do we have any secret facilities on any other bodies in space?
No. We still have not managed to put any humans on any bodies in space other than the moon. As you know, we're doing a lot on Mars, but it is done without any human participation.
Okay. Did you think you would live to return to Earth?
Well, I hoped so. We had multiple problems on the ship, and there were times that I seriously had doubts whether we were going to be able to get home. When I took off, I think I assumed my chances of returning to Earth were about 50-50.
What was the most dangerous part of the lunar landing?
Well, we were a little off course, so we did not totally understand what the ground was going to look like underneath us. And there was a real possibility that if we hit a big irregularity in the surface, that it would upset the lander, and that would be the end of all of us.
Yeah.
The most dangerous part in our return was actually when we got onto the ship and we accidentally broke one of the switches. And we had to repair the switch before we were able to begin our return.
Okay. I believe you said that you were told not to discuss what you saw. What did they tell you would happen if you did discuss these things?
They essentially told us it would be the end of our careers. They would say that we were hallucinating or making things up or lying. They were very, very emphatic that we were not to allude to the presence of extraterrestrials.
So why did you quit the space program?
For one thing, I didn't like all the controls over what we could do and couldn't do. But secondly, there were many young individuals in the program that I felt were highly qualified, probably more qualified than I was at that stage of my life. So I decided that I would quit and make room for others.
Okay. Now that you are on the other side, would you like to tell us about the extraterrestrials?
The extraterrestrial presence is far greater than any of you can imagine. There are hundreds of planets in our galaxy that contain intelligent life. Those planets have been in existence for some millions of years, longer than humans have walked the earth. They have technologies that are much more advanced than you can ever imagine. They can travel vast distances. They can hide their ships to human view. They can be interdimensional. There are many, many things that I now know exists on the other intelligent worlds.
Okay. So do extraterrestrials represent any threat to humans?
No. One thing that you have to understand, that the God which humans worship is also the God of those planets. There are many, many lessons that humans have not learned, such as getting along, that the residents of the other intelligent planets have learned. Keep in mind that with the great technologies that extraterrestrials possess, it would be very simple to wipe out all life here on our planet. But they also know that there are cultures that can assure mutual destruction for any of the intelligent planets.
Yeah. I've got some more questions from our listeners. Does the Earth look like the images presented to the public? Are there other land masses that are not made public?
No, there are so many images taken of the Earth right now by different countries, by private companies, that there would be no way to hide any such features of the Earth.
Okay, another one. Early humans say there was a time before the moon existed. Is that true?
It all depends on when that time was lived by those humans. There is the existence of the moon has had help from advanced cultures in the past.
Okay, one more quick question from our listeners before I get back to ours. Are there actually space stations on Mars?
There are. Mars has been used by many of the intelligent civilizations throughout the ages. At the present time, there are several bases that have been used for storage on Mars. At the present time, I do not believe that there are any active bases that are used for anything other than refurbishing and restoring vehicles.
Okay, Neil, how many different types of extraterrestrials are you now aware of?
I am aware of in excess of 200 different variations of extraterrestrials that are in our galaxy. Keep in mind that other galaxies also have different forms of life. But I assume you're asking about our own galaxy, and there are over a couple hundred of them.
Okay, are there extraterrestrials that are living with humans on the Earth?
Yes, that has been taking place for probably thousands of years.
What is the most predominant type of extraterrestrial living on Earth?
There are several varieties of shapeshifters, and they can acquire the exact form of human beings. There are many Palladians that have been on Earth for many years, and they have actually interbred with humans, and it is impossible to determine who has extraterrestrial heritage and who do not.
Which would you say is the most predominant type living here?
I would say the Palladians.
Okay. Why are the governments of the world keeping their existence a secret?
They fear that the reaction of the people would be so hysterical that it would create great poverties and even violence. It has been a very slow process through hundreds of years where the governments are trying to prepare the people for the truth about the extraterrestrial presence.
Yeah. So why do our governments allow abductions?
Abductions were originally allowed to allow the extraterrestrials to study humans and to try to eliminate some of the illnesses and sicknesses that would shorten their lifespans. Abductions are also used to provide information. They would bring individuals in what you refer to as an abduction, and they would put ideas and thoughts in their minds. Those type of actually learning sessions were very instrumental in providing humans with their current advanced technologies.
Yeah. When will our government fully admit to the presence of aliens?
They are approaching that time. They are working on trying to bring out information slowly. They cannot admit to the fact that humans and extraterrestrials have cooperated in many ways in the past. The governments have told many lies to the people, and they feel that the time is approaching when the individuals can handle the information.
Okay, and then exactly how are they going to do that?
They are going to bring out information very slowly. For instance, there are now military videos available that they admit have got unidentified flying objects in them. What they will not admit is that aliens have been participating in many activities with humans for hundreds of years.
Okay. Are any of our government officials, you may not be allowed to answer this, but are any of our government officials aliens? And if so, can you say who?
There are many officials in world governments that have alien backgrounds and affiliations. As I told you earlier, Palladians have been living with humans and interbreeding with them for thousands of years. There are a couple shapeshifters in your government and in foreign governments. Their role is to help guide the government in the upcoming disclosures. There are individuals that are working towards that goal as we speak. It would not be advantageous for me to tell you who those individuals are, because they are going to play a very important role in the future. And if their identities were disclosed, it could be counter to what is best for human evolution. Yeah. Keep in mind that humans absolutely must evolve to travel the galaxy if they are going to survive in the long run. All planets have got a period where they can support life. All of the suns that provide energy and allow life on Earth have a lifespan as well. There will be a time that Earth will not be able to sustain life. And if humans are going to continue an evolutionary process, they will have to reestablish on other planets. So in the long run, that is why disclosure and the fact that we cooperate with extraterrestrials is very important.
Yeah. Did any of the other astronauts have encounters with aliens?
Of course. Many of them did, but they all respected their vows of secrecy. Mm-hmm. It is not till they get over here that they can truly say what they saw. And I must admit, I enjoy being with them over here.
Have you seen Jesus?
I had not seen Jesus until the first time that I was requested to channel with the two of you. He came to me and asked if I would be willing to speak with the two of you, and I can assure you that when Jesus asks you to do something, you understand that it is for the betterment of mankind, and you certainly agree to do it.
Yes, we share that thought. So what are your beliefs now?
I have confirmed all my beliefs. As I told you earlier, I was a firm believer in God, heaven, and all the things that go with it. I do now know that our God is a very believable presence and is even more powerful throughout our galaxy than I ever imagined.
Yeah. Will you describe heaven for us?
There's no way I can describe heaven. It is an absolutely incredible place. I get to see all of my deceased friends. We get to discuss many things. We get to try to guide humans, although we are quite often ignored. It is a place of great color, of great beauty. It is a place where you think of where you want to go and you're there. It is far greater in dimension than anyone can conceive of.
Yeah. When you're in heaven, can you travel to other planets?
Yes. It is possible that you can move between the dimensions and that your energies can be transported to other planets. In the past, I have reincarnated on other planets, and now that I was on the other side, I chose to return to some of them to see what had happened since I had been there. So it is, most anything you can imagine is possible when you are on this side and in heaven. Now I would point out that there are different realms, and that the realms that you are in can affect what you do. That is why people reincarnate, so that they can advance in the realms of heaven and enjoy the miracle of heaven to their fullest extent.
Are you planning to reincarnate?
I am seriously thinking about it. I want to be able to serve the United States again somehow. You are entering very troubled times. People do not get along. They do not show the love that God has taught. And I'm feeling that I might be able to serve a lifetime where I can help others.
That's wonderful. Do you have a final message for us, Neil?
Yes. Thank you so much for allowing me to come forward tonight. I have tried to answer the questions truthfully as I understand them. And I think that I have given you information that you have not heard before. Know that the presence of extraterrestrials will far exceed any of your imaginations. They are many different forms. They are many different intellectual levels, emotions. There are so many things that you cannot imagine. But I have been very lucky in my life. I have been able to see much now that I'm on the other side. And I am very pleased that you have asked me to come forward. So try to show love and compassion towards one another. That is what is required to assure your evolution. And when an as disclosure takes place, do not fear. All has been planned, and all will be well. So good night.
Thank you so much, Neil. You're a good soul, and we really appreciate having you.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry for the delay in the beginning of the show. Next week we are going to be channeling Mahatma Gandhi. He led the Indian government to finding freedom for them from the British. He is a wonderful person. He speaks true highly of nonviolence, and that is part of the message that we're trying to bring you today. You can submit questions and suggestions for future guests and shows to our email, channelinghistoryonparax@gmail.com. Seventh book, Spirit Speak, Channeling Jesus and the Holy Spirits, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, our websites, wherever books are sold, and that book is also available on Kindle for immediate downloads. So we thank you very much for attending tonight. I hope that we've been able to give you information you've not seen before. I hope that you will face disclosure as a positive event and trust God that all will be well. So with these words, I'm going to say good night. We will be with you next week, assuming I can get all the technical things properly done. And good night.
God bless you all. Have a wonderful week, and hopefully we'll be connecting again next week.
Thanks for listening to Channeling History. Tune in again next week for another electrifying episode, as we never know who will make an appearance or who will come through the portal. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2020. Our Story Begins by Kevin MacLeod, licensed through Incompetech.com.